Good afternoon. By mutual agreement, all parties in the DA's bid to set a legal precedent around the International Criminal Court and the arrest warrant issued against Russian President Vladimir Putin, the matter no longer needs to proceed and the South African government will pay costs. The Gauteng High Court made the order earlier today. Now, the DA initially intended to haul the South African government to court to compel the arrest of Putin should he be in South Africa. The announcement of the Presidency that Putin would not attend the BRICS Summit in August physically rendered the issue moot. The DA, however, proceeded as it sought further clarity on the executive's legal obligations under international law and costs. All parties managed to reach an agreement without the court hearing arguments. Let's get more on this. I'm joined by SABC News reporter Canny Maphanga. Canny, you've been following these proceedings. Just take me through what happened today.
Well, we intended to hear an application from the DA seeking further clarity on the executive's obligations under international law. But we understand, as you may have seen earlier, we're expected to start at 10 a.m. and we only got to proceed at around 11:30. It appears that all parties were able to come to a mutual agreement and the DA was essentially able to succeed in the relief that they sought. So they got the clarity that South Africa is obliged to comply as a signatory, and they also got the clarity that on the 17th of July an arrest warrant was issued for Russian President Vladimir Putin should he enter South Africa. We now know that that scenario doesn't exist because the Presidency did confirm that. And then of course the DA wanted costs because they had to bring this matter to court because the South African government did not clarify at the time whether or not they would give effect to the arrest warrant issued by the ICC against the Russian president for alleged war crimes. So they got the costs as well. Now that with all the relief that the DA sought from the Gauteng High Court being given to them, there's no need to further ventilate the issue in the court. So all parties then reached that agreement, and without any argument, we adjourned.
Yeah, when I've been looking at legal commentators online, they were saying this issue was moot before. South Africa never said they don't intend to comply with international laws. South Africa has always said that, they understand the issues and they're going to. Is that a fair point? It's been described as political grandstanding. I don't want you to go into the commentary around that, but was there ever a point where South Africa said, actually, we're not going to comply with international law, we're not going to arrest Vladimir Putin?
Well, I think the issue was that there wasn't a clear answer. Remember, when the ICC arrest warrant was made public, there was a lot of banter back and forth between the different positions. We know the DA's position was that the Russian president, if he were to enter South Africa, they would have to give effect to that arrest warrant, arrest him, detain him, and surrender him to the relevant authorities. However, we didn't get a clear answer at the time as to whether that would happen or not. And as I've stated, that arrest warrants that was issued out by the NDPP was only issued out on the 17th. So that was the Monday prior to us expecting to hear the application on Friday, which is today. And the DA has been arguing this issue for a long time. So I think they were forced to go to court for that lack of a clarification from the South African government on this issue. But we already know now from the Presidency that the Russian president will not be physically attending the BRICS Summit and that he will participate in some aspects virtually. So it almost renders the issues moot and the relief sought. I mean, the scenario will not exist. According to, if we rely on what the Presidency has said, the scenario of the Russian president coming here and them needing to effect an arrest warrant will not exist at this stage.
But I guess it's also the reason for precedent. There's so many things that happen in South Africa, and we know now, perhaps from this court action, that should there be perhaps another head of state who's sought by the International Criminal Court or something, there's more clarity on what either parties may do.
Yes, we now know what the legal obligations are under international law. If another situation arises where there is an arrest warrant issued by the ICC and that person intends to visit South Africa, what the executive is obliged to do with respect to that.
Have we had commentary from either parties after this matter was resolved earlier on in court today?
We've had a brief statement from the DA confirming that the mutual agreement was reached and that they were successful in getting a warrant of arrest issued out for Russian President Vladimir Putin if he were to enter South Africa. Yeah.
And government who has to carry the costs? No statement yet?
No statement yet from government who has to carry the costs. And as I've explained, the reason why the DA wanted costs is because they had to take this matter to court because at the time they were not getting that relief or that clarification from the South African government on whether they would or would not effect this, or give effect rather to this arrest warrant issued by the ICC.
Canny Maphanga, SABC News reporter, always clarifying issues around court and legal matters for us. Really appreciate your time this afternoon.